Good evening and welcome everyone. My name is Cara Stobart. I am the County Officer for the Devon Association of Local Councils, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our Connect event tonight, where we are introducing you to nature recovery strategies, looking to discuss with you how parish and town councils are supporting nature recovery through the management of their amenity green spaces. Now, we all recognise that restoring nature has a range of benefits for our communities. Not only does it do the obvious in addressing the decline in biodiversity and creating more sustainable environments, it can also help our communities to look beautiful, to be thriving, which helps build a sense of belonging and pride of place in a community as well. And it also helps supports people. It helps encourage healthier lifestyles. It boosts recreation and tourism, supports social cohesion, and much, much more. And I also know that there are many councils already actively engaged in nature restoration projects, and many more that are interested in starting them or are curious about how they can incorporate nature restoration into their existing. And these projects range enormously in size and shape. Some of these might be really large projects like creating woodlands. Others might be much smaller and might be around the maintenance of flower beds and grass verges. But all of these amenities, all of these green spaces can all play an important role in restoring nature in our communities. But how can we link these activities, these grassroots activities that we're doing as parish and town councils, to a broader local nature recovery strategy for Devon? And this is what we're trying to start to do tonight. We're hoping to build some connections between what you're doing and the strategy. I'm really pleased to be welcoming Damien, Joe and Bridie, who are part of the team working on Devon's local nature recovery strategy. They're going to explain to you what the strategy is and what it's trying to achieve and how you can get involved. Once we know a little bit more about that, we want to spend some time with you exploring how parish and town councils are currently managing their green spaces and amenity spaces. What are the challenges that you experience in trying to do nature restoration activities? And once we've understood that a little bit better, we want to look forward and consider, well, what could we be doing in future and how might the nature recovery strategy help us support us to do those activities? So this is a great opportunity tonight to learn about the strategy and provide our grassroots insight into our views and experiences to influence the development of that strategy. And it's also an opportunity to connect with other councils also interested in nature restoration and to share our views and experiences between us. Now, to help everyone to have a pleasant experience tonight, can I remind all participants to treat each other with civility and respect? There may be differing views expressed at times, but please can we remain respectful and courteous. I want all participants to have equal opportunities to speak, so we'll be making use of breakout rooms and polls and open discussion, and I want everyone to feel they can have a chance to contribute. And on a practical level, please can you keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking? Use the raise hand and chat functions to indicate if you wish to make a comment or to ask a question. And please can you include your name and your council name in your name so we can easily identify each other throughout the evening. This event is being recorded and we will share a copy of the recording and the slides that are shared in our next e-bulletin. That's enough from me for now. A warm welcome now to Damien, Joe and Bridie. Over to you guys.
Hello. You'll most be hearing from Damien talking about sort of green spaces and amenities later on. But I'm here with Joe representing our sort of side of things, which is looking at communities and how the LNRS is going to relate to communities, which I imagine will be relevant to you as councillors. So I'm going to give a kind of broad overview of the LNRS and hopefully give you a little bit of context for what Damien's going to go on to discuss. So let me just get my screen up. There we go. Yeah. Great. I'm Bridie Kennelly and Joe Pullin is also here. We are leading on delivery for communities for the local nature recovery strategy. And we're also working with Wild About Devon, which is the local nature partnerships, a sort of communities platform, which I'll talk to you a tiny bit about at the end of this, just to give you a little bit of information. I'm going to start by showing you a short video, which is available online as well, but just to give you a little bit of an idea of what the local nature recovery strategy is and what it might look like in Devon.
We all know that Devon supports an amazing diversity of landscapes and wildlife. From the peat bogs of Dartmoor, through wooded river valleys, rolling farmland and urban parks, to our 2 coasts and incredible marine habitats. What we sometimes forget is that this environment underpins our lives. It provides us with food, water, carbon storage, flood control, great recreational and business opportunities, and a natural health service. However, we've witnessed a huge deterioration in the health of our environment due to complex factors such as habitat loss, pesticides, disease, pollution, and climate change. Waterfalls went extinct, and breeding curlews are on the brink. When was the last time you heard a cuckoo? To help us reverse these declines and create a nature recovery network, the Environment Act requires responsible authorities to develop local nature recovery strategies. These must include a description, opportunities, priorities, actions, and a map. Critically, the map must identify areas in Devon where we need to focus effort. Strategies must show how restoring nature can support wider objectives, such as carbon storage, flood control, water quality, and health and well-being. In Devon, the strategy will cover the whole county and be led by Devon County Council as the responsible authority. All other local authorities, our 2 national parks and Natural England, must also be involved as supporting authorities. It's crucial, however, that responsible authorities work with all local partners, and so work in Devon is being done under the umbrella of the Local Nature Partnership. We're starting to work with partners to pull together baseline information. We'll also get an overview of all the great existing initiatives and success stories, and we'll discuss and agree priorities and actions. Critically, we need your views on what you want from the strategy, as it must be useful. We will involve a huge range of sectors, including farmers. The strategy needs to guide agri-environment funding and help the farming sector to better manage and protect the environment on which it depends. Developers and planners. The strategy needs to provide an evidence base for local plans, guide biodiversity net gain funding, and ensure we all have access to wildlife-rich spaces. Community groups and schools. The strategy needs to help community groups and schools to connect with nature. Health and well-being. The strategy needs to link with the work of Devon Local Nature Partnership's Naturally Healthy Forum. We need to make this strategy as inclusive, positive, and impactful as possible. We want everyone across Devon to be talking about wildlife and taking action to recover our healthy natural environment. Here's how to get involved.
So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a brief idea of what kind of thing we'll be looking into with the local nature recovery strategy. So I'll just cover a few of the points in that. So the local nature recovery strategies are a requirement of the Environment Act. They're covering the whole of England, which has been divvied up into the different sections, which will be each delivering their own local nature recovery strategy. So the responsible authorities for these have been appointed by the government in summer of this year. No specific deadline, but there is an expectation of a year to a year and a half. These responsible authorities have to involve supporting authorities like local authorities, national parks, Natural England, and other partners as well. DEFRA is funding the development of the strategies and producing guidance, and something that's quite crucial to know is that not all of the guidance is yet published. So this mentions the link between the LNRS and local plans. There may possibly be information about communities. It is an evolving sort of requirement, so we will be adapting the strategy as that goes according to what DEFRA is suggesting is required. So the local nature recovery strategies have to involve what you might hear referred to as DOPAM, which is a description of the wildlife, opportunities for our wildlife, the priorities for habitats and species, the actions needed to achieve the priorities, and maps showing the areas of existing importance and where we want to focus action. They have to identify how restoring nature will help to meet other socioeconomic priorities, And just as a note, they should follow the local authority boundary down to low water mark. And the idea behind the strategies is that they can really help people in developing sort of some quite ambitious and effective plans for nature and for nature recovery. So helping to guide funding, whether that's private funding or larger schemes, helping to guide local plans. As I said, guidance on this is not yet published, but that may well be relevant to many of you. Helping to achieve national environmental targets, helping everyone to know what they can do and where to deliver Devon's wildlife priorities. And this is something that might be particularly relevant to, community groups, and to inform more detailed nature plans produced by local authorities, national landscapes, national parks, parishes, etc. So in Devon, you'll see it's a strategy for Devon, Plymouth and Torbay. So Devon County Council has been appointed as the responsible authority, but the LNRS will cover the entirety of the county of Devon. So that will include Plymouth and Torbay, which obviously sometimes or often act as their own unitary authorities. We've agreed that the marine environment should be included, so that is being considered within the Devon LNRS. And the work is being led by the Devon County Council ecology team under the umbrella of the Devon Local Nature Partnership. So we've got a really nice collaborative approach. We're engaging, or mostly have already engaged, a team of contractors. So these contractors are either working with partners to identify the priorities and actions for species and habitats. They might be involving the delivery partners. So that's Joe and I and Damien are sort of working on that side of things. Damien's actually covering two aspects there. And then looking at creating a user-friendly and inspiring website for the strategy. So we don't want it to just be a very dry document. We want it to be something that's really accessible, really usable, and hopefully very useful for everyone. So I've put in just a very rough sort of timescale. As I mentioned, DEFRA is sort of adding guidance as we go. So this might evolve, this might change. But as of now, we've engaged the specialists to identify the habitat and species priorities. We've got mapping work going on. There's been various workshops around discussing the DOPAM for species, habitats, nature-based solutions, started to engage the delivery partners and started to look at developing that LNRS website. So you can see the end of December, we've got description, priorities and opportunities and actions drafted is the plan. And then in early spring, we're looking at mapping priority areas, working with delivery partners to start developing this web-based LNRS, which will be useful, and to finish writing the draft LNRS. In spring 24, we'll have consultations. We're not quite sure what those will look like yet. It depends, I suppose, where the LNRS is at that point. And then in summer 24, we're aiming to make final revisions and publish so that it is publicly accessible and everyone can view it. So in terms of the communities side of things, myself and Joe are leading on delivery for communities, and that also covers parish and town councils. We are intending to send out initial communications introducing the concept of the LNRS before Christmas. So in the next couple of weeks, this will be things like suggested copy for maybe going in a newsletter, for going on social media, things like that. And we would really, really appreciate if you would be interested in supporting us in that communication, how best we could get in touch with you or send information like that on to you if you would like to help us in disseminating that information. We're looking within that comms to ask for volunteers to create a small focus group to help us in developing the LNRS, the web version for communities, to make sure that that's really accessible and useful for communities. And then we'll be continuing to use these comms channels to update on the LNRS as it continues to be developed. I'm going to mention very briefly Wild About Devon, which is the community section of the Devon Local Nature Partnership. So Joe and I have very recently taken that on, and we're looking at developing a forum with an initial meeting in late February. So more information on that to follow, but that will be particularly useful for anyone who's perhaps running community groups or is a practitioner working with communities a lot. We'd really like to make sure we're making that really useful. Wild About Devon also runs a grant scheme, an awards, which last week was the awards for 2023, so that went really well. And it's also operating as a platform for signposting resources and information. So I have a very small request, which is if you are aware of a community group that you think would be relevant to Wild About Devon, we have a community map that I've just linked there. And we'd love it if you could encourage any community groups you're aware of or part of to go and submit themselves to that map and take a look and see what else is going on in the area. If you'd like to get in touch with us, those are our emails there. I'm sure Cara can pass those on to you as well. And you can find out a bit more about the Devon Local Nature Partnership at the website there, and about the Local Nature Recovery Strategy at the second website there, which will be continuing to evolve as the LNRS evolves. We stop sharing that. Thank you very much. So that's my little bit on communities. I don't know if we want to do maybe a few minutes of questions on any of those.
Yeah. Does anyone have any immediate questions about the Local Nature Recovery Strategy before we get into a bit more conversation between the two of all of us?
Yeah, and we'd also love to hear if you have any thoughts on are getting the message out to communities initially, and as the LNRS evolves, we'd love to hear any thoughts you have on that, whether now or feel free to email us. That would be brilliant.
Or if a bright idea pops to you during the meeting, please type it into the chat as well.
Yes, please.
Lots of opportunities to let us know your thoughts. I'm seeing no immediate hands rise, so perhaps we will move on to the next bit, Damien, and then we can give another opportunity.
I can keep an eye on the chat as well, and yeah, we can reply anywhere there. Okay. Cheers.
Right, okay, I'll kick off with my bit. I'm just again going to share my screen. We've planned this for some interaction in this session, so there will be some polls for you to participate in and some question and answer and a couple of workshops to undertake. So I will start sharing screen and then kick off. Oh, there we go. Right, hopefully you can all see that. If you can't see that, please shout. So, just get rid of this. There we go. So the bit I'm doing is what I've been asked to do to contribute towards the development of the LNRS, the Local Nature Recovery Strategy, is to explore a couple of things. One is I'm looking at the traditional orchards and their importance for biodiversity in Devon, but that's not why we're here tonight. If anyone wants to contact me about that, I'm more than happy to hear from you. What I'm really focusing on this evening is exploring your experiences and opportunities for supporting nature recovery through the management of amenity green space in all its shapes and forms. And that's come about having been asked by the county ecologist, Sarah, to consider how what the steering group has referred to as the leisure and tourism sector could contribute to nature recovery. And one major significant aspect of that is how our amenity spaces are managed, and that's what I'm exploring. I should say I'm a consultant working under contract for Devon County Council, so an independent consultant. So anything I say, any opinions I express are my own rather than those of the County Council or anyone else for that matter. So what this is all about is this is a photograph which some of you may recognise. It's a photograph of Hampstead Heath with your typical park bench. You've got some sports fields in the running track in the valley and so on. It's looking out across, typical view across London, and it's a fairly typical sort of suburban green space. I grew up in London, so that's my initial experience of urban parks and gardens. And for me, this is fairly familiar ground. And our experience to date of nature is that nature is, regardless or despite all the efforts we've made over the last few decades, we are still seeing significant declines in nature, to the extent that we urgently need to do something. And the government has produced an environment plan to facilitate the various activity towards nature recovery, signed up to this international 30 by 30, which is 30% of land managed for nature, by, I think that's by 2030, and signed up to nature recovery. And we need to look at all types of land. And this is where our amenity spaces come into the mix, because there is the potential to do things differently with this amenity space, both for our own health and well-being, but also to benefit nature. And this example of Hampstead Heath is an illustration of what is possible. It may not be, necessarily the best example, but it's a reasonable example. And it's a demonstration of what can be achieved, and an illustration of how it can work. So what they've done at Hampstead Heath is essentially they've looked to create areas of wildflower meadow on the heath, and incorporate those into the management of the heath, through practical interventions, through soil removal and turf stripping and sowing wildflower seed and so on. And the aim of these is to improve visual amenity for people, but also provide nectar and pollen mixes for insects, and structure for invertebrates. So, and also, as I was, nesting habitat for ground nesting birds, but also foraging areas for birds and so on. So good stuff. And as with many amenity spaces, it's heavily reliant on the involvement of volunteers to manage and to do some of the tricky things like helping to rake and remove arisings and so on, and manage the bits that they can't manage mechanically. So this is just an illustration of an opportunity that's been taken on an urban space on the edge of in London. And what we're aiming to do this evening is explore what kind of things you might already be doing or considering on your green spaces. Firstly, we're going to move on to a couple of quick polls, which Cara has kindly offered to facilitate for me. And the first poll is just to kind of capture what kinds of green space do you manage, do your councils manage? And I put some examples up there. I should explain that my background prior to moving to Devon 8 years ago, I was head of landscape and open spaces for Winchester for 5 years. So I draw on some of my experience of managing amenity green space in informing this presentation, but certainly have no predispositions or preconceived ideas about what is going to work in Devon and so on what you would like to do. But so these are the kind of spaces that I was managing in Devon, in Winchester. And the other next question is about how much of your green space is already managed for nature. I know it's fine if it's none, that's absolutely fine. There's no judgment. It's just interesting to capture what you might be doing at this current time. So, Cara, can I pass over to you to facilitate the poll? I'm not entirely sure how I do that, but I've just stopped screen sharing.
So bear with me just a moment. I've just hit a
That's right.
slight snagging that the question doesn't want to come up, whereas the other one did fine earlier. Hopefully that's on the screen now. So please, everyone, just take a minute just to indicate what green spaces that you manage.
Can I just ask, when you say, do we manage, how about like in the first one, allotments? We have an allotment group that allotment society that actually manage the ground that is owned by the parish council. So we don't actually manage it. The allotment society does.
I'd say if you're not actively managing it yourselves, probably don't indicate it here.
Okay.
But there may be opportunity, I suppose, you might be to influence it. But let's worry about what you're actually managing, shall we, Damien?
Yeah, that's absolutely, yes, what you're managing directly. I will make a note of that. A similar situation, yes, our allotments in Winchester were let to allotment societies, so I understand.
Okay, so I've got 13 out of 17 responded, 14 now. I think the last few are coming through. So I'll end that poll now so we can have a quick look at the results. So we can see here lots of people wanting green spaces. Oh, hang on, I'll share the results. So we can see lots of people managing green spaces, grassy areas, road verges, parks and gardens, but no lakes, ponds or wetlands, I'm afraid, Damien. We have got allotments, cemeteries and burial grounds and sports pitches in there. Okay. Thank you. We'll take that data away with us. Thank you. Did you want to go on to your next question, Damien?
We'll go on to it. I just see Joe and I have replied about, someone in the chat was asking about meadows and whether we'll go on to have a conversation about that, about meadows. So that's brilliant. Let's go on to the next, because the next question was how much, if any, of the green space is being managed for nature. Have you got a poll for that as well, or should we just,
yeah,
right, let's move on to that then. That's really interesting.
Hopefully that's on the screen now.
No, so
that's the wrong question.
Oh,
sorry, wrong question.
Hope you haven't. There we go.
How much of that? So if you've got a big green space, are you only allocating a portion of that for nature restoration, or is it the whole space? We appreciate it's going to be an estimate. I'll give you sort of 10 more seconds to respond. Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to end that now and share the results.
That's great. That's really interesting. So everybody's doing something, which is really encouraging, which is really nice to see. And in this instance, every little helps. And if the LNRS can help local councils or communities do more, that's what this LNRS is partially all about. So, right, that's brilliant. And so we're capturing this data as we go along, aren't we, Cara? So we won't lose it. Shall I go on to the next slide?
Please.
Yeah. Right, hopefully you're now seeing workshop 1 and 10 minutes in groups. What I'd like to do is split you up into, how many have we got? 17 at the moment. Maybe into 3 groups of 5/6, or maybe let's do 4 groups. 4 groups of 4, 3 groups of 4, 1 of 5. If we could do that, it'd be brilliant. What I'd like to do is have you to discuss within those little groups what you're already doing for nature with your green spaces, or what you're doing for nature within your area, if you don't manage any green spaces directly. That's the first question. I'd like you to agree that one person is going to feed back from your group after the 10 minutes are up. And the second question is what, if any, constraints or issues have you encountered in trying to or managing green spaces for nature? But again, we're just trying to capture what experiences are across your local councils to understand the picture, so we can feed that in and influence how the LNRS might offer support and help. We're going to come on to that as a second workshop in groups in a bit. I'm going to stop sharing. So what has been suggested is you might want to take a quick picture with your phone of those questions, because I think you lose them when we split into groups. Cara can.
Yeah, that would be okay. So yeah, so you won't see those questions in a minute. So please either take a picture or scribble them down now. And I am about to move everyone into their breakout rooms. So you should see a prompt in a moment to join a group. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you've all appreciated having a time to chat with each other about what each other's doing in your respective parishes. We'd like to invite you now to, if a representative from each group could perhaps just feedback some of the top themes that were coming out in your group discussions. Because we've obviously got limited time this evening, we're going to ask you to each group to feedback something, but for each group that follows, if you could just add additional points that haven't already been mentioned rather than repeating the same content, because we are going to be using a poll to capture everyone's feedback at the end anyway. So I'm going to ask for a representative from room 1. Would you like to, I don't know if you've appointed somebody, but would somebody be willing to share what came up in your discussions? But this was the group that had David, Irene, Liz, Northam, Guy and Peter in it.
Yeah, I'll feedback from my notes if you will. It's
Thank
Peter.
you, Peter.
First thing is that there's a number of us had very little land that was owned by the council. What land was used, there's a discrepancy amongst the community as to what they need it for. In a lot of cases used for games, or people want to play football on it rather than have the grass grow long. Cost was another major constraint, the cost of planting, hedging and so forth. So it sounds as though it's not so much getting hold of the trees and the hedging plants, it's more the labour in order to do it. What else we got? There was a mixture of activity across green spaces, mostly grassland, but in Kilmington's case, the common. Some work on verges. Only one of us, I think, had pond that they're working on. I think that's probably the labour again was one of the major constraints. And I think that about sums it up from my notes. Perhaps someone else will fill in if I've missed anything.
And not unexpected comments that you've raised there. The conflicts between the amenities use, I think, creates all sorts of challenges, doesn't it, as well as the labour costs. So thank you for that. David, did you want to add something extra in there? You'll need to unmute yourself.
Right, yeah. I was just going to say that we have a very successful biodiversity group that are organised. They're very keen. They know their stuff. They're very keen on putting on exhibitions, days, and speakers come to talk about various issues relating to biodiversity and nature. So that's been very successful. It's been running for 2 years. Another year, next year will be another one, and it's really is bringing over 100 people coming to the village hall to see all the exhibitions. So it was a good information. Even if you haven't got land and ownership of land, you can get the message out.
Thanks, David. So can we hear from group 2 now? So this was the group that had Bernard, Francesca, Gail and Janet in it. Who would like to give some feedback from your group?
Oh, hi. I'm supposed to be. Well, to be honest, two of the ladies are only small parishes, and they've only got verges and different things to sort of manage. A lady from Barnstable has got quite a lot of playing fields and things like this. I'm not sure quite what else they were doing. She'll have to fill you in on that. I'm from Linton and Lynmouth, and we've got a massive area really of I said about acres. We've got 200 odd acres of SSI land which we manage. We've got woodlands, several acres of woodlands we manage. We've also got a flower meadow we've started in the last 2 years, and a small orchard, and a nature reserve, we're just starting up with a pond and bird hide and different stuff. So for us, we're doing quite a lot, but I wasn't sure as far as Devon's concerned. We're in Exmoor National Park, so I'm not quite sure whether the two clash or whether they're separate or what with that. As far as there was quite a lot of resistance in this village, and I think in the other parishes, with what's weeds, really. If you don't go around and tidy up or spray the weeds on your pavements and footpaths, there's a lot of people complain. Then if you spray, there's a lot of people that complain about the spray. So there needs probably something along those lines that needs thinking about. I don't know what else to say. Maybe another member of our group fill in anything that I've sort of missed, really.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. I'm not seeing any hands or anyone unmuting. So Janet, did you want to add something? You'll need to unmute yourself, Janet.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, Bernard covered most of it, but yes, and the challenge of some wildflower planting in small areas in the town, in Barnstable and on roundabouts, and it's all right while it's all flowering prettily, but then when it's not so pretty, you get quite a lot of complaints, and it's about trying to manage it and manage expectations of what the wildflower planting will be looking like over a number of months. We also work closely with a volunteer group, Barnstable in Bloom, that's been reinvented, if you like, and they provide us with tremendous support, and that is in terms of people going out in the evenings and helping weed and helping to plant and giving us plants and suggesting good areas to do, and they've replanted quite a few areas in one of our we own a main park, and they have helped put some very interesting planting into that park.
Thanks, Janet, and thank you, Group 2. So Group 3, would you like to share any points raised from your group? This was a group with Kathy, Lara, Rachel and Sasha.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm going to share what we discussed. I won't pick up on anything that's already been said. So the additional items are things like bug hotels that have been established, establishing hedges, working in partnership with farmers, collecting self-seeded saplings so that they can be potted and brought on and then moved somewhere more appropriate. Anything else? Oh, and wilding part of a graveyard. And the challenge there was that someone who visits a grave in the park that has now got wildflowers on it is making a complaint about the state of it. Yeah, that's the only challenge I think that we came across.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Group 3. And Group 4, which was Andrew, Chetna, Linda, and I think Sheila. Would you like to share any final thoughts from your group?
Yeah, quite luckily, quite a few of the points have already been hit already. So one of the key comments we were talking about in spaces that managed were verges, and then on top of that, that came with identifying responsibility of land and who has to manage these, the regimes and when they are maintained. To follow up on that, here at Cranbrook, we've actually got quite a few issues with hedgerows and residents questioning why these hedges haven't been cut that year, but we have different regimes and schedules for these hedgerows. So some are on yearly, some are on 2 yearly and 3 yearly, depending on their location. I believe it was Exminster that said they've got a volunteer ecology group, which is a big benefit for them, where I said a constraint for us was actually getting volunteers out within our country park. So that was it really. I think everything else has been mentioned, to be honest. Yeah, one of the constraints we have in Cranbrook as well is the residential knowledge and understanding of why these maintenance regimes are in place and when they're happening. That's it really from our group.
Thank you, Andrew. And it seems like there's a common theme there about, you know, communicating with our communities, helping them understand what's happening, managing expectations around conflicting interests. I think that's all really, really interesting. Damien, would you like me to launch the poll to try and quantify some of this stuff? You'll need to unmute yourself, Damien.
Yeah, that would be good, just to do that quickly. I've made notes myself, but it'd be really handy just to quantify some of it.
Yeah, so because we've only had just the one speaker back from each group, we're just going to launch the poll just so we can get an idea of to what extent people are doing certain activities. So the first poll is going to be, what are you doing already? Okay, so this is just a chance to let us know, you know, are you already doing wildflower? Are you already you know, leaving grass to get a bit longer? Just want to get a feel for how many of you are doing each activity.
Just to explain, cut and fly means cutting and leaving it. Cut and lift means cutting and taking it away. I've used a technical term for grounds maintenance. So apologies.
There's a few options. I think you might have to scroll a little bit as well to see all the options. I'll just give you 10 more seconds and then I'll close. Okay, so let's see what we've got. So a lot of people leaving the longer grass, cut and fly, cut and lift, wildflowers.
That's a good mix there, and certainly understand that shows the interest in managing those grass areas differently. Really interesting.
Yeah, got the planting of native hedges was a couple of one, and planting of trees and woodland.
Excellent.
Which is great, and probably influenced by the late Queen as well, I'm sure, and those other royal initiatives.
That's great. I hadn't scrolled down, so that's brilliant, really good. So
and a great take up around mobilising community and volunteers as well. So that's brilliant.
Okay, good.
Wonderful. So again, I just want to capture a little bit of feedback about some of the challenges and the constraints as well. So there's just another poll. And I'll leave this up for about 30 seconds. Hopefully this will just help us quantify some of the issues you're raising about, you know, conflicting priorities, cost, time, labour. And if there's anything that hasn't been mentioned in any of these lists or anything you want us to know, please do type it in the chat so we can make sure we take it away with us. A couple more seconds and I'll close. Okay, let's see what we've got. So not unsurprisingly, large number there highlighting conflicting priorities being an issue, cost, time, labour and resources. Community criticism and opposition, shockingly quite high there, I think, but again, it's probably coming down to the conflicting priorities. Anything there that you want to reflect on, Damien?
I think not, but what's interesting, having spoken to various people over the last few weeks, I think there's quite often initial resistance or reaction to areas being left to grow long grass and looking untidy, and I think part of it, the challenge is communication over why it's not all necessarily about cost cutting, and in fact actually it doesn't always save money, but I think as time goes on and understanding develops, people become more comfortable with it as the norm rather than the change, and it generally is change that generates the reactions. But yeah, nothing that wasn't expecting. That's good, really good. Thank you.
Okay, so we wanted to do a bit of a forward-looking aspect now. Would you like to share your slides again, Damien?
I'll just share my slide just to, yeah, just whistle through these next couple of slides because they are duplicates of what we've just had in the poll. There we go. So, oops, sorry. So this is what these are the categories of what you might already be doing, and this is the kind of stuff, my experience we were doing in Winchester with open spaces. I noted no one mentioned about grazing, but with that's, I suppose, if you're dealing with the common land, that becomes more likely and so on. And I've picked up about the observation there about the engaging with local landowners, but also raising awareness among the communities in addition to what is there. So communicating the message, getting more people interested is important, because the more we get interested, the more we get people to act and do things. And then the constraints issues, so cost, time, labour, the conflicting priorities, and the challenges. I think all chime with what you've fed back. So hopefully that makes sense. What I'm planning to do is at the end of this session is we'll have a sort of just a general discussion as well about issues and so on. I'll see if I can answer some queries as well. So we're going to go on to the next workshop, which is, as Cara said, is about looking forwards and asking you to think about what more would you like to do in managing your. So that's also, I've noted some of you said we don't actually manage any green spaces. Okay, well, let's flip it around. In addition, what more would you like to do in and around your communities? If you're not managing spaces directly, are there things that you would like to see happen in and around your local communities? And the last question, which is to ask you to think about, okay, taking everything that we've asked you so far and you fed back, how would you like the local nature recovery strategy to help you in contributing to nature recovery, in respect really of managing green spaces in and around your communities? Are there things that you would like to see the local nature recovery strategy provide in terms of whether it's policy hooks or guidance or that kind of thing? So those are the two questions, again, to note down before we break out into groups. What more would you like to do? And it can be everything from look, we're going to build a pond, going to dig a pond next year, to we'd really like to do this, but we don't know where to start. So don't be afraid of having aspirations as well as plans. And how would you like the LNRS to help you achieve that? So I will stop sharing. So.
Okay, so once again, we're going to go back into our discussion groups for you to consider these questions. So hopefully you managed to capture those before the screen disappeared. Got 10 minutes. We'll see you again soon. Welcome back, everyone. Again, I hope you've enjoyed having time to chat with your colleagues once again about this. So we're going to get some feedback now from each of the groups. We're going to focus on the first question initially. What would you like to do in future to manage your green spaces for nature? So this is if we could wave magic wand and there was no barriers in our way, what would we like to be seeing happening? So group one, would you like to give some feedback?
I'm going to try and capture these as we go, so onto a slide, which I'll share with you once we get to the ones we've got it all together, right?
So room one, that was Irene, on Guy and Peter. Do I pick on Peter again as he gave us feedback last time?
Okay, no problem. I specifically wanted to suggested going for verges because that seemed a way of pushing on not exactly an open door, but it would have maybe the greatest impact throughout. But we had some discussion around that, and to try to do that effectively, partly because of the expectations that these flowers spring up overnight and then they stay there 12 months of the year. Clearly that doesn't happen. That was one of the comments that came out, I think that was there wasn't too much else, I don't think, specific projects really to go for that we'd like to do. Do you want me to answer?
I've written down manage more verges for nature as one of the things.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, we've got the A35 runs through our parish. National Highways have, after some lobbying, tried to do something with that.
Right.
And we did look at the Devon highways, but
Right.
we haven't really got any support from them on that.
So potentially an aspiration there to have more influence on others who manage these spaces as well, possibly. Thanks, Peter. We won't go to the second question just yet. We want to capture everyone's feedback on this first question. Thank you very much. So group 2, would you like to share your ideas? Gail?
Yeah, we were thinking that, yes, what that chap's just said is important, and we'd like to do that, but we're very limited because we don't have a lot of land in some of the parishes. So really, we would like to engage with the wider community, for the people who do own the land, farmers, people with private areas of land, even people who've just got a garden. So communicate with them about the importance of it all, so that it can be a wider issue. Also, could we have access to the grants available to make things happen? We're not sure of them being there, how to access them, who would be eligible, so information about that. I don't want to stray into the second question because the two sort of go together, really.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Group 3. So that's Kathy, Lara, Rachel and Sasha.
We talked about possibly asking non-farming landowners about using some of their land for wildflower meadows. We talked about no dig policy, but then we got onto the issues of planning and how sometimes parish council wishes are not taken into account by the planning authority when they're doing what they do.
So you've actively, through planning responses, already been trying to push for biodiversity type stuff, and it's not been taken into account, I suppose. Is that your experience?
Yeah, it was Lara that talked about it largely. So I think that was the crux of it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. And I'm sure Bridie and Joe are taking that on board, because I'm sure influencing the planning system will be an aspect of this strategic plan as well. Group 4 then. You come up with it. Andrew, is that you again?
Yeah, I've drawn the short straw again. So what we'd like to do more of is get more compliance from landowners, so we could some councils can operate with them further. Education, get more education in, and more specialist knowledge within the communities as well, and the rest of it, and push for more of the 3 R's, so recycle, reuse and reduce further, and focusing on that a bit more. But the rest of it was kind of touched in with the others again.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Damien, any reflections there, or do you want to share what
I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll just see if I've captured that or missed things. I've got just one point to add.
Again, if there's any other points that people want to make, please use the chat to get that so we can capture those.
Right, so just share that screen. So that's what I've captured. Oops, sorry, I've gone too far forwards now. Hold on a minute. Right, bear with me. There we go. So, oh no, hold on. It's come out of sharing screen, isn't it? No, it hasn't. There we go. There we go. Just keep my hands off my mouse. So I've captured these basic, so managing more road verges for nature, engaging with and influencing others, e.g. highways and all shades of forms, engaging with wider communities and surrounding landowners to encourage management for nature, gain or get more guidance on access to grants for nature management, asking non-farming landowners to manage land for nature, which kind of links to point 2, but I kept it separate. I wasn't sure what was meant by no dig policy, so it'd be good if we could come back to that in a minute. Greater recognition of local voices in planning for nature recovery. So by planning, I mean the planning system, development management. So I'll tweak what that says in a minute. More support compliance with landowners. I think that links again with point 2 and point 4 perhaps. And then more biodiversity educational knowledge provision for local communities. And then lastly is reduce, recycle, reuse. I put it twice, and reduce, reuse, recycle it should be. But have I captured what people are expecting now? I'm just going to stop sharing so that if people want to, they can.
There was a quick clarification given the no dig stuff. It was no dig in letting the ground stay untilled.
So that was no dig. Okay, which is an increasingly developing management of agricultural land. Yes, about reducing the extent of tillage and therefore the release of captured carbon in the soil and so on. So yes, right. People were happy with what I captured there.
I'm seeing no objections otherwise, and there hasn't been any additions in the chat. So
okay, good. Right, so let's move on to question 2 then.
Yeah, so question 2 was was looking at how can the local nature recovery strategy help you to achieve your goals. So again, to group 1. Peter, are you still there?
Okay, yeah, I am. Assistance for communications, I think, was the main thing. Sort of posters, leaflets, that kind of stuff. We've had, for example, people from East Devon A&OB come out and do things like bat walks with all of the equipment, which really captures people's imagination. You know, the bat listening devices, and then also tablets, so you can see what they are. We've also done a number of moth trap events, and again pull people together for a sort of a community get together the following morning to go through them, and that does seem to capture people's imagination. So I think it's that kind of help that was really the strongest bit that came out of our little group.
Okay.
Shout if I missed anything again.
Yeah, so again, it's very much around communication, engagement, helping the broader public to understand the activities that you're doing and the importance of the activities that you're doing. So thank you very much there, Peter. Group 2.
Yes.
I think again, Gail.
As well as the wider community, thought it'd be quite a nice idea if the LNRS team could come to parish council meetings in person. We have our AGM once a year and are always looking for interesting people to do a talk about something, and that would fit in really nicely to talk about the strategy, which might be a bit dry, but if we can then go on to sort of say why it's important that the problems that we've had, like leaving areas long, are left long, and encouraging people to do the same in their own area. So that might help with communication for councils, because often if we send out things in writing, it just sits in an email box and people don't really pick it up. But if you're there in person, that really might make a difference.
Thank you, Gail. Group 3. That's probably you again, Kathy.
Unless someone else in our group wants to speak up, we didn't have anything that hasn't already been said.
Okay, thank you. Group 4. Back to you, Andrew.
Yeah, so we spoke about the funding opportunities, which I can see excellent to put in the chat. Sorry, I was going to put this into the group number 2. Yeah, so the funding opportunities, not necessarily just for tree planting, for example, but opportunities for education and getting that specialist knowledge in. So you've got the people to come and help you that way through, as well. Then yeah, citizen science opportunities as well. Their opportunities so we can get the volunteers out and that we can help that way. And then I was just thinking, just simplicity in the document so any layman can pick it up, and it's malleable and it's easy to read, and it's just simple. Like you can start from stage one and then you know where you're going from there, and then yeah, you can develop as you go more specifically that way as well. But that was it really.
Thanks, Andrew. Definitely hearing the calls for toolkits, communication toolkits, groups of speakers that people can call on, or facilitators and educators. I think this is all coming off loud and clear. Damien, any reflections, summaries you want to provide?
I'll unmute myself. No, that's all. It's excellent stuff. Really good. I'm just going to add something, and then I'll share my screen again.
I hope for everyone that's here sort of participating, you're seeing that, you know, the team here are really actively listening to what you're saying. They're documenting everything to take away to inform their upcoming conversations.
Yes, really helpful stuff. Right, I'm going to share the screen again, just to show what I've captured. Right. Right, so, right, so how would you like the LNRS to help you? What I've captured in it is assistance in communications around nature recovery. I've put some posters, leaflets, and so on. What is needed and why simple changes to management can make a difference. That's talking about the changes to grass regimes. It's not leaving it long does have nature benefits, or can have. All right. So there's more to unpack, but that's what I've put down. Developing community interest in nature. Capturing people's imaginations, bat walks, moth trapping as examples, but yes, those kind of bio blitzes and so on, really good. Presentations about the LNRS to parish councils, but also and communities to engage with people and get the message out. I think that's a challenge for the LNRS and how it approaches and embraces communities and empowers and inspires people to act. Identifying funding opportunities for educational engagement as well as for practical management. I've missed that off the end of the number 4, but I'll add as well as practical management to that. Cara, you mentioned toolkits. It's a really good word. So I just noted it down. So simple toolkits that help communities do things for nature. And advice, maybe they're toolkits on funding, toolkits on nature walks, toolkits on changes to management. For example, I've seen Cambridge have got a very simple little guide to planting an orchard for their wildlife wardens, which is just really interesting. That just a simple 1-page, how you could plant a nature or an orchard for nature. Citizen science, I think it's really good way of getting people engaged. And then I've also made this last note about accessible documentation. That whatever documentation the LNRS has, websites, maps, whatever, it's got to be layman's language, so anyone can pick it up and understand it, see it and be inspired by it. So
there's been a couple of comments that have come into the chat again while we've been talking. Janet's made a suggestion about encouraging small community groups to take over small patches of land. So again, there could be potentially support there about how you engage with communities or help support volunteer efforts and stuff there. And then there was another comment about parkland areas, and particularly working with contractors, and how contractors don't like leaving grass long because it leads to other issues like increases in dog waste hiding in such grass. So again, maybe there's something there about how you engage with other stakeholders that might be have an involvement in managing your green spaces. And again, it's all coming back to the communication, isn't it? It's highlighting what the issues are and trying to identify the strategies to help overcome those issues, isn't it? And giving councils pointers. So yeah, so just mentioning those so they don't get lost.
No, really good. No, really good. Yeah, so I think we're coming to, this is pretty much the end of what we're doing tonight, and I think it would be good maybe to have a bit of an open conversation and discussion. Now, is that all right? Question and answer session, just to see if we pick anything out of else. I think we're looking to finish at past, aren't we? So maybe give people to open the floor up to if there's anything anyone is burning to say.
Yeah, no problem at all. So quick Q&A. Has anyone got any questions they would like to ask Damien, Joe and Bridie?
Yeah, it's all very carrot and no stick. I do think there's a place for saying that, you know, if people don't do these things, either we'll have to put the precept up or the planet will go into decline or something. You know, it's all too nice.
Okay. How to motivate people.
Yeah, but ultimately these activities need investment, don't they? And we can choose to invest it in parish councils by using the precept, or we can choose to invest by utilising volunteer efforts and other means. And so, but it needs investment regardless. You're absolutely right, Irene. Francesca.
I think incentivizing the local communities, because I think the landowners and everybody has to be on board, because otherwise there's nothing going to be able to move through, because it's the corridors,
the
wildlife use, and that's individual people's land.
Yeah.
Thanks, Francesca. Any other questions or comments before we wind up?
No.
Okay, I think we're drawing to a close here, Damien. Do you want to just highlight sort of next steps after this evening's session?
Yeah, I won't bother with a slide. So this has all been really, really useful for helping me to get a better picture around what this whole amenity green space topic and challenges and issues might look like from your perspective, from the perspective of local communities. So really, really useful. In terms of next steps, I think Bridie set out the timeline, and I think the timeline is to have some form of LNRS documentation website, but for consultation, I think late next spring, maybe drifting into the summer. And what I would like to see, and what I think there will be, is opportunities for you and your communities to engage with the development of the LNRS further beyond what we've done tonight. This is very much a starting point, and there's a lot of activity going on across the board, from everything from action for searle buntings and greater horseshoe bats all the way through to what we talked about this evening, how amenity green space management could make a difference. And so I just encourage you to take the opportunities as they arise to engage with and influence the development of this. It is, you know, you are tonight right at the beginning of the process, feeding into what I'm working on, and what I will feed back from this session to Sarah at the meeting I've got with her on Tuesday, to say that, you know, this is what it's looking like from a community perspective, from the point of view of amenity green spaces. Joe, Bridie, can I pass over to you just to talk about the community engagement side of things and your next steps and thoughts?
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, we're looking to send out some initial comms before Christmas, or in the next couple of weeks, really just introducing the idea of the LNRS, giving people a little bit of text they could use if they'd like to, you know, start talking about it with their community groups. And then we're hoping to continue following up on that, keeping people up to date. And as we said, we'll be looking for a small focus group of hopefully representative of a few different people. So Cara said, you know, we can send some stuff out in our bulletins, so we'll definitely do that. Anything you want to add, Joe?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered an awful lot this evening. We've got some really good feedback, and that's been fantastic. I'm really glad I could come along and hear what people have to say. We'll take on board all those comments. And yeah, we look forward to sending out some really positive steps for the next part of the journey. It's the start, isn't it? This is fantastic. Everyone's on board at the beginning, yeah. So thank you.
Yes,
yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
And I'm grateful to all three of you for enabling parish and town councils to provide some input at the start of this journey as well. So thank you all three of you for giving up your time this evening to help.
No, you're welcome. Thank you, everybody. It's been great. Really good.
Okay. Any other final words from you, Damien, before I close?
I'd just say, Cara, thank you for doing the technical side of the
Pleasure.
and everything, because I would have been a bit lost. But that's brilliant, really good. And just some of the comments in the chat, that we'll capture all those. They'll be captured as well, fed in separately. And I recognise a lot of those comments about the practicalities of, you know, managing grass in different ways, and how it can be difficult, and the, you know, where it's working with contractors and what you do with the risings and dog poo and everything. So yeah, I share some of your pain, as it were, shall I say, from my previous experience. So.
Okay, then. Thank you, Damien, and thank you again to Joe and Bridie also, and thank you to everyone who has joined in this evening and shared your perspectives and insights and experiences. See you again another time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.